We have an interesting puzzle for you in this video, and this puzzle was originally posed by Shakuntala Devi, the famous mathematician. So let me read out the puzzle. Supposing a clock takes 7 seconds to strike 7, how long does it take for the same clock to strike 10? I am sure the people of my era would be able to understand what the question is about. But for the benefit of the current generation who have grown up using a digital watch or looking at a digital clock, this is what is called popularly as a grandfather's clock now. And Shakuntala Devi is actually referring to this clock when she poses this puzzle. Now I think you'll be able to better understand the question. This is what she calls as the gong, the pendulum, which strikes on either sides to create a sound and indicates the time. This is the gong or the pendulum. And now look at the question. It takes 7 seconds to strike 7. So at 7 o'clock, it strikes 7 times. So to strike 7 times, it takes 7 seconds totally. And how long would it take for the same clock to strike 10 times at 10 o'clock? So pause the video here and try to answer the question. A few more hints. Of course, I will not be revealing the answer now. I'll just give you a few hints. The clock striking 7 means if I indicate one strike by one slash. So this is my first strike, right? Second strike, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7 times. It strikes 7 times and it is 7 o'clock. There are 7 strikes, right? And she says it takes 7 seconds. It takes 7 seconds to strike 7 times, right? And why does she use the word same clock? Because the time interval or the time taken between strike 1 and strike 2. So this is strike 1, right? And this is strike 2. So the time taken between these two strikes would be the same as the time taken between these two strikes. So this is because it is the same clock. Because it is the same clock, equal time intervals would be maintained. The time intervals. I hope you understand what I am referring to as time intervals. The gaps between each strike is the time interval, right? And that is equal because the clock is equal. And what would be the mechanism of measurement of this time, the total time taken? So as soon as the clock strikes once, the first time, the stopwatch is started, right? It started. Let me say at the 0th second, it strikes once. As soon as it strikes once, at that instant, the stopwatch is started. Then the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh strike happens and the stopwatch is stopped. This is how the time is measured and the time taken is found to be 7 seconds. Right? So now please pause the puzzle and try to solve it on your own because enough explanation is given. Just I would like to state that just because she says it takes 7 seconds to strike 7, the answer is not 10 seconds to strike 10. Of course, you have a very logical answer and very logical explanation for this puzzle. It's not just a trick. So go ahead and answer the puzzle. Pause the video. Okay, welcome back if you have thought about it. So we have 7 strikes here, indicated by these blue slashes, 7 strikes. How many time intervals are there? We already saw that the time intervals were equal. In between every 2 strikes, every 2 consecutive strikes, the time taken is the same. But how many time intervals are there? Let me count the time intervals. This is first 2, 3 time intervals, 4 time intervals, 5. And there are 6 time intervals, right? There are 6 time intervals for 7 strikes. So how much does one time interval measure? How much is it? It's definitely more than 1 second because 6 time intervals, let me write it as gaps. Gaps meaning gaps between the 2 strikes. So 6 gaps takes 7 seconds. clearly means that one gap or one time interval would take more than 1 second, right? So every time interval would take more than 1 second. So 6 seconds over, and now we have 1 second left. So that 1 second is divided equally between all these 6 time intervals. So I can say that 6 gaps would take 7 seconds, mean one gap or one time interval would take 1 and 1 by 6 seconds. Why 1 by 6? Because the last second we are dividing it into 6 equal parts. So 1/6 of a second is added to each time interval. So 1 and 1 by 6 seconds. Of course, maybe this is a very long way of finding it out. For those who know the unitary method, they can directly say that if 6 time intervals or 6 gaps take 7 seconds, then one gap would take 7 by 6 seconds. So this is for those who are aware of the unitary method of finding out the answers, but both the answers are actually the same. 1 and 1 by 6 is the same as 7 by 6. But now what is the question? The question is, how much time does it take for 10 strikes? So let's again put slashes for the 10 strikes and see how many time intervals are there. So 1 second strike, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And how many time intervals would there be? If you start counting, you would find that there are 9 time intervals or 9 gaps in between the strikes. And we know that each gap takes how many seconds? 7 by 6 seconds. So 9 gaps would take how many seconds, or how many seconds would it take for the clock to strike 10 times? It would take 7 by 6 into 9, because there are 9 time intervals, or it would take 63 by 6 seconds. Now how do we solve this 63 by 6? I would like to write it as 60 plus 3 by 6. Of course, you can also try dividing 63 by 6, but this I find it simpler. 60 plus 3 by 6 can be written as 60 by 6 plus 3 by 6, because 6 divides 60 exactly, and this 3 by 6 would be the additional thing. So 60 by 6 is 10 seconds, 10, and 3 by 6 is half, so 10 and a half seconds. And this is going to be the answer of your puzzle. For the clock to strike 10 times, right, or at 10 o'clock, or 10 strikes, 10 strikes of the clock would take 10 and a half seconds. I hope you found this puzzle interesting. Thank you.